This video is going to go over the notes that you need to include on your photosynthesis and cellular respiration note cards. The first thing you need to remember is that photosynthesis is the process where organisms such as plants that are autotrophs can use the energy from the sun to make sugar called glucose. So they are taking in carbon dioxide, water, and using the energy from the sun to make glucose, and then they also make oxygen. This process is occurring in the organelle that is called the chloroplasts. So the chloroplasts are these jelly bean little organelles that contain the thylakoids, which is where the light-dependent reaction occurs. They also have a part called the stroma, which is where the light-independent reaction occurs. So again, sunlight and water are going into photosynthesis. They are the reactants. And in the thylakoid membrane, this is where these inputs are used to charge up the molecules that are called ATP and NADPH, which are then used to power the Calvin cycle. One of the byproducts of the light reaction is oxygen, and you can see that it is getting released on the left side of the diagram. Now, the Calvin cycle, the input is carbon dioxide. And through the Calvin cycle, the carbon in the carbon dioxide molecule is rearranged into different shaped carbon-containing molecules, where it is eventually turned into a molecule called G3P, which can then quickly be assembled into a sugar called glucose for the plants. The rate of photosynthesis is definitely affected by different factors in the environment. So the amount of sunlight, the amount of CO2, and the temperature can all affect the rate of photosynthesis and affect how quickly and efficiently plants can take in sunlight and use that to make glucose. Cellular respiration is the process where organisms can use the sugar to make energy called ATP. And the organisms are able to make about 36 or 38 molecules of ATP. Plants and animals can both do this process of cellular respiration. So you just have to have a mitochondria to do this. And plants and animals both have mitochondria. And you might have heard or remember that the mitochondria is called the mighty mitochondria, or the powerhouse of the cell, and that's because it makes ATP, it makes the energy. And this is another jelly bean looking structure, an organelle. It has the two membranes, the outer membrane and the inner membrane. The inner membrane is all folded, and those are called the cristae. And then the center of the mitochondria is called the matrix. The process of cellular respiration happens in 3 steps. It starts out in the cytoplasm with a step called glycolysis, and this makes 2 molecules of ATP. Then glucose is broken down, and then its product is put into the Krebs cycle, which makes another 2 ATP molecules. And then finally, the last step of cellular respiration is the electron transport chain, and that is where most of the ATP is actually getting made. The electron transport chain occurs on the inner membrane of the mitochondria. There are also factors that can affect the rate of cellular respiration. You have to have glucose. If there's not glucose, it's not going to be able to happen. You also have to have oxygen in order to do aerobic respiration. If you do not have oxygen, you're going to do anaerobic respiration, which is not as efficient as aerobic respiration. There are 2 types of anaerobic respiration that we talked about. The fermentation, this picture here goes over alcoholic fermentation, which has the byproduct of alcohol, and then lactic acid fermentation, which has the byproduct of lactic acid, lactate, and that is what causes you to feel very tired, very sore. Your muscles feel a little tight there. That's from the lactic acid buildup that occurs when you work out really hard, and your muscle cells have run very low on levels of oxygen and must kick into anaerobic respiration, and specifically lactic acid fermentation. These slides include everything that you need to have written down on your note cards for photosynthesis and cellular respiration.